Hello, and welcome to today's morning movement mobility session. All that you need for these sessions is some space, maybe a mat, something to hold on to for balance, but we're going to do some gentle movement for 20 to 30 minutes, and we'll get started with a standing circuit. So for this one, we're going to work on overhead and shoulder mobility. To start, I'm just going to interlace my fingers a tiny bit like this and have them behind my head. Make sure you're not really arching at the lower back. Think of engaging your core a little bit to stay straight. And then you're going to pull your arms over to one side gently and then to the other side. I'll show you from behind the back. You're just alternating, pulling to one side and then the other, nice and gentle. Again, not arching at the lower back. And we're just taking each shoulder through that range of motion. Might also feel like a little bit of a tricep stretch. And try to keep your head mostly straight as you do this as well. It forces a really open position at the chest and shoulder. And rest. Then our second exercise is going to be for hip mobility with some hip circles. This is one where you'll want to hold on to the wall or a chair, something for balance. Have one leg planted on the ground and bring your other leg forward. It can be a little lower if you can't get it up quite that high. Then you're going to bring your knee out to the side, behind you, and then down, and reverse it to bring it back to that starting position. Again, around, back, and down. Reverse it back to the top. The key for this one is staying nice and tall. Try not to bend over too much at the torso. Instead, just keep your knee a little bit less high, less lifted if you need to. One more, around, back, and down, and back to the top. And then we'll turn and face this way, knee forward, one leg planted on the ground, holding on for balance, bringing that knee in a big semicircle, and back to the top. Keeping your core in mind, and this one is a nice strategy for staying upright. And again, just lifting your knee as high as is comfortable. We'll do all of our circuits twice, so it gives you an opportunity. The second round, you might feel a little more warmed up, and you might be able to keep that knee a little bit higher. And rest. Wonderful. And then our third exercise in this circuit is going to be a hamstring reach. I'm going to put one foot forward, and then I'm going to bend towards that foot with a flat back. And I'm bending the other knee to allow me to hinge down. So one leg forward, back staying mostly flat as you hinge towards that foot, and then coming back to the top. With all of our exercises today, just go at your own pace, take your time. You don't have to keep up exactly with me. The key with mobility is to go at your own pace and stay within your own range of motion. So don't force it to try to get closer down towards your foot. Just keep that back mostly flat and reach until you feel a big stretch in that hamstring. And now we'll switch sides. It'd be okay if you need a little bit of balance support. Again, one heel forward, and then the other leg bends as you reach towards that foot. You can also pay attention to your breathing. Mostly just make sure you're not holding your breath, but you could focus on inhaling as you go down And exhaling as you lift back up. Totally normal if one side feels a little bit stiffer than the other. We're usually not totally the same from side to side. So again, don't force that range of motion. Just go down as far as is comfortable. One more. And rest. Alrighty, take a second to breathe, and we'll go back to the top with our first one being that overhead shoulder range of motion. Just loosely interlacing your fingers, not death gripping on your hands, bringing them behind your head, and then pulling to one side and then to the other side. Making sure that you're not arching at the lower back. You can think about squeezing your glutes. That usually helps with that. Give you another view. You can think of your thumb trying to end up by the same shoulder. But again, just staying within a range of motion that feels safe and comfortable for you. We'll do one more on each side. And then release your hands. Alrighty, then it's back to the hip circles. Again, a little balance support, standing nice and tall, lifting that knee up, and then bringing it around and down, and back to the front. We're going to do 5 of these on each side, so feel free to just go right at your own pace. Stay nice and tall with that torso. Maybe your knee can stay a little bit higher this time. If not, that's okay too. And rest. Take a moment, switch sides. Nice and tall, inside leg planted, other leg lifted. And do that knee circle from side to side. Another good one to make sure you're not holding your breath. It's probably most challenging in this backward part of the movement, and that's totally okay, totally normal. Like most things, the more you do it, the easier it'll become. Good, and one more. And rest. Wonderful. And then we'll do our one leg forward hamstring reaches. So again, that heel is just a little bit in front of the other toe, keeping my back flat-ish as I reach and straighten back up. The goal is to feel a little hamstring stretch at the bottom. And a last little note is you could make sure not to be craning your neck up as you're moving down, but maybe look at a point not 4 feet in front of your foot to help keep a more neutral neck. One more for this side. And take a breath, switch sides. And remember to think about your breathing on this one. Maybe inhaling as you lower down and exhaling as you come back up. If you tend to be someone who rushes through exercises, kind of getting them over a little more quickly, thinking about your breath as a nice way to naturally slow yourself down so that you're using less momentum to do the work. Just kind of is a nice way to help you get a little bit more out of each exercise. Good. We'll do one more here and then move into our second circuit. And rest. Wonderful. Alrighty, moving into our second circuit, we're going to be on the ground for this one. So find some space on the floor with a mat if you need it, and just position yourself comfortably on your back with knees bent, and then feet are just about a ruler distance apart. We're going to do a glute bridge with an abduction, but before we lift, you want to make sure to put a little bit of tension in your core by bracing your abs. I do a little bit of a pelvic tilt to help me find that engagement, pushing the lower back into the ground, and then maintain that as you lift up. We're going to push the knees outward a little bit, bring them back in, and then come down. So again, it's lift, not a huge movement with the knees, just about 2 inches to either side, and back down. So for our glute bridge, we're getting nice hip extension at the top and maintaining that as you move into that abduction, which is just moving the knees that little bit outward. This is great for our hip flexors, which are often bent for a large part of the day. And take your time with this one as well. You may notice your hips kind of drop down as you do the abduction, but over time you can work to keep them at the same level as you move. And rest. Good. For the second one, we're going to flip over into our hands and knees position. So if you need to roll up your mat for a little bit more support on your knees, you could. And then just position yourself with knees under hips, hands under shoulders. And then make sure that your back isn't arched or rounded, it's just right in the middle. And then from here, you're going to lift opposite arm and leg. If that happens to be too much, you could just lift the leg. And we're just going to hold this for about 15 to 20 seconds. Trying not to twist open to the side, but keeping your hips facing the ground. Take one more breath in and out. And then bring that hand and knee back to the floor. Again, set that back nice and flat. And then reach. If you can, think about reaching your fingertips forward and reaching your toe backward to be as long and active as possible. That's an extra bonus. And again, if you need to have your hand on the ground, that's okay too. And then rest, bringing that arm and leg back down. Good. And then the third one in this circuit is a little bit of a treat. We're doing just a glute stretch. So start by crossing your ankle over your knee and then reach around either side of your leg and grab on to your hamstring or to your shin if that feels like more of a stretch but still comfortable. And just take a big breath in and let it out. If you can, think about kind of pushing this knee away from you. It opens up the hip a little bit more. Give it a little tug and then switch sides. Crossing ankle over the knee, reaching through and pulling it towards you. And this is another one where it's totally normal to have more flexibility on one side than the other, which is why it's good to stretch each side independently. You can always spend a little bit more time on the side that feels more tight. And give it a little bit of a tug before releasing and bringing yourself back in position for that first exercise. Just take a breath put your hands on your stomach just as a reminder to fill that core with a little bit of tension. And then we'll do our glute bridge with abduction. If you want a little something else to think about on this one, you can think about pushing more through your heels than through your toes. And again, we're keeping that knee movement small, but trying to keep the hips lifted, not dropping as you do that little pulse towards the outside. We were doing this for a little more strength than just mobility, although we're getting that with the glute bridge. You could wrap a resistance band around your knees and you definitely feel the glutes kick on even more for this one. We'll do one more. And rest. Wonderful. And then bring yourself back into your hands and knees position for that bird dog hold. And we'll try to start on whatever side you did second last time. If you can't remember, that's okay. But for me, it's raising my left arm and right leg as I reach. Again, making sure the back isn't arching. It's just nice and flat as you lengthen. Just focus on your breath. If you need to have your arm down on the ground and just extend the leg, that's okay. One more breath in and out. And bring it down. Take a breath for a moment. And then flat back, extend. If you ever forget and you accidentally lift the same hand and leg, you'll notice that's quite a bit more challenging. And you'll easily remember to do the opposites. Again, lengthening through the fingers and the toe. One more breath in and out. And come back down. Very good. And then rewarding ourselves with that glute stretch, lying on your back, crossing an ankle over your knee, and then pulling that leg towards you. Really good time to focus on your breathing. And again, maybe thinking about pushing that knee away from you just a little bit to really open up the hips. One more little tug towards you. And then release and switch sides. So these mobility and stretching and also strength exercises are great for getting your body warmed up. Maybe it just gets you ready for the day, maybe for going on a walk or doing some strength exercise or a little bit of cardio. But think of it like an extended warm-up or just a great way to get in some nice light movement. Give that leg a little tug and then release it back down. Wonderful. All right, find your way back up to standing for our third circuit. We're going to be back into a standing position, and I have my feet just about hip distance apart. And our first one is going to be working a hip hinge motion. This is one of the most important movements that we can practice in addition to the squat. And we're going to do a hands forward version where when I send my hips backward, I'm going to reach my arms forwards and then bring my arms back as my hips come forward. So they're moving at the same time, reaching the hips back, hands come forward, and pulling back together. You'll notice I have a little bend in my knee. It's not completely locked out. You'll feel way too much hamstring stretch if you keep your knee straight. So let that bend so that you can reach the hips backward. And then try to keep your back nice and flat as you reach forwards and draw everything back down. We'll do one more. And rest. Good. And then our second one is going to be a lateral lunge. So for this one, you're going to take a fairly wide stance. How wide just depends on you, your body, and how tight your hips might be feeling today. And then I like to have my toes pointed slightly outwards. And then you're going to shift your hip to the side, keeping the other leg straight, and then come back to the top. Now I'm going to alternate sides. So now go to the other way and come back up. This one is a little bit more complex. So if you only move a little bit to the side like that, that's totally okay. But as you feel more confident, ensure that you can keep that other leg mostly straight, then you could sink a little bit further into that stretch. You can kind of imagine having a chair behind your foot that you're trying to tap your hips onto before standing back up. We'll do one more on the other side. And rest. Very good. Alrighty, and then our third one is going to be back to shoulder mobility. This time I'm going to interlock my hands behind my back here. And then I'm going to start with my elbows just where they naturally are. And then I'm going to pull them backwards to open my chest and then bring them forward again. Pulling the elbows back and then returning them to that starting point. So going at your own pace. Don't have your hands too tightly clasped together. And also don't pull way too far back with the elbows, just until you feel a little bit of a stretch here. This is pulling our shoulder blades together to open up that chest and shoulder area. One more. And rest. Wonderful. All right, we'll run through the circuit one more time. First thing being that hip hinge with the arms lifting up and forward. So again, feet hip distance apart, raising the hands as you keep the back flat. Soft bend in the knee. And standing nice and tall at the top. So this is the pattern that you would use for doing a deadlift or a glute bridge, this hinge of the hips. Should feel a little bit of that hamstring stretch, just like with in our first circuit, that heel reach. And we'll do one more of these. And rest. Good. All right, then we're back to that lateral lunge. So again, feet are comfortably wide with toes pointing slightly outward. And then you're going to sink into that hip and come back to the top. I like to have my hands here. You could have them on your hips. You could have them on your core. Whatever kind of reminds you not to let that torso drop over too much, but to stay a little bit tall as you sink towards one side. Make sure to keep your heels on the ground and then the other. Good. Again, focusing on your breathing. Maybe inhaling as you lower down and exhaling as you come up. We'll do one more on each side. And rest. Good. Then we just have one more exercise today that we'll do just one time as a little way to round things out. You're going to go back to seated. And get in this butterfly groin stretch position. It's okay if your feet are a little further out or if you need to rest your back against a wall for some support, but try to sit nice and tall. And then we're going to reach one hand up and over, and then the other side up and over. Think even more about reaching up than you do about going to the side. So it's just kind of lengthening in that rib cage and oblique area. And then give your heels a little bit of a tug towards you. And we'll do one more on each side. And rest. Well done. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's morning movement mobility session. If you did, please share it with a friend or post it on your social media and tag at HelloStrengthSeniors. You can also find more information over on that Instagram, HelloStrengthSeniors, and hopefully I will see you next Tuesday for more movement and mobility.